So this is our company, Leading Edge. We used to be part of Remax. We debranded. It was a contract dispute. They didn't want to pay the Remax fees. Next page. However, the one that shows, okay. Yeah, let me just, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the sales process. What is the value of working with us? Quick questions that we mentioned on the Facebook page that we'll answer for you, like what is my home worth? When's the best time to sell? That sort of thing.
I like the tips that you had on Facebook.
Oh, okay, great. You mean on the furnace or the other ones?
No, the other one.
Okay, all right. We'll give you a market update on some statistics. Some of them are going to look wrong. We actually thought they were wrong when we first saw them. And we double-checked them and we said, gee, she's right. And then evaluation of offers I'll go into, especially for you. I was going to skip that if we went too far over, but since that's a question of yours, I'll show you how we evaluate offers. Okay. And then Alina's going to tell you a little bit about herself and working with buyers. She works with both sellers and buyers, but it just seems like it's worked out. I've worked more with sellers than buyers, and she's worked more with buyers than sellers, but we've both done both. And in some cases, I've represented the seller and you represented the buyer. So, and then Q&A. And then remind me if I forget, we have a little raffle for signing in. We have a little $25 gift certificate to Beth Bath and Beyond, and whoever the 2 tickets are we pull out, they get it. All right, great. Next, Joe. So a little bit about our company. We have 9 locations. We're in Melrose, Wakefield, Lexington, Winchester, Arlington, Belmont, Cambridge. What's the other 2 I'm forgetting? Boston, Back Bay, and Reading. Okay. Leading Edge agents tend to sell 104% over listing price on average. When it was a hot market, that wasn't necessarily a hard thing to do. The challenge is who can sell at that amount in a tougher, more normal market, which is what we're entering now. The average sales price of the homes we've been selling is $648,000. The average experience of Leading Edge agents is 14 years. Alina and I have only got 10 years combined, but I think you'll be impressed when she tells you the track record that we've done in the past couple of years. The average days on market for us is 27 days, and we were just informed that our team is in the top 25% of Leading Edge agents out of that 180 agents. So, right, next. So, people often say to me, I haven't sold a home in 25 years. What is the sales process? So I'm just going to take you quickly through the snake. I call it the snake or the roadmap. Basically when you call us out to your home and you sign a contract with us, we implement a marketing strategy. How are we going to sell your home in your town, in your market? We design a customized plan. We expose you to the entire real estate community through MLS. We have a broker's tour. We invite the other agents in town to come and see your house, because if they see it, it's fresh in their minds when they're dealing with their buyer agents. We include you in the open house campaign. We'll ask you, would you like to have a special showing for all your neighbors? And it's kind of a way to say goodbye, Some people decline, some people like that idea. We expose you to local and regional advertising. We put you on the internet. We do something special with the internet. We put you on, we'll pull out special ads on Facebook, and Alina has a special social media market that she can tell you about later called WeChat, which is what all the Asians use to communicate with one another. And we have a relocation service. One of the big things, the best thing an agent can do for you is to qualify the buyer. You don't want somebody coming out to your house that doesn't have a letter from the bank saying that they have the money to buy the house. They're beating up your carpet, they're taking up your time and space. And so we make sure that anybody, unless it's an open house, you can't deny anybody from coming to an open house. But as far as an individual showing, we require that they show us a pre-approval from a financial institution that they qualify for the house. We negotiate the offers. Alina's a certified contract negotiator. I worked for the federal government for 15 years as a purchasing officer, negotiating contracts with Raytheon, Hughes, Northrop Corporation. So Both of us have good experience in that area. We take care of all the documents, any contingencies that come up, like inspections and deposits, and mortgage contingencies. We handle the closing. I just did one today in Arlington. And after-sales service. Who's the electric company the new buyer needs to know, make sure everything's disconnected and transferred properly, water department, that sort of thing. So that's kind of it, soup to nuts, what happens in a transaction. Next. Okay. So what makes us different from everybody else? One is we know what we're doing and we get results. And Alina will share with you some of those results in a minute. We're going to ask you to trust us. We're going to give you our best advice. Ultimately, we have to do what you direct us to do. Sometimes people follow our advice, and sometimes they don't. And when they don't, there's usually a consequence. Not that we're right 100% of the time, but we do this all the time, so we kind of know what to expect. So you should hire us so we can evaluate the property. We must do what, Jill? We do about 3 market analyses a week on average, okay? So we're constantly doing market analysis on different properties. We guide you to secure a property that meets your needs if you're thinking of buying one. A lot of times I'll sell a property for one client and then they ask me to help them buy a property. Just did one, sold a house in Lexington in, August, and found him a house in Wakefield to buy in November. And we have access to outside vendors and resources, people like Lamia, people like Tracy, and people like, where's Ryan? Ryan, there he is, Ryan. Okay, so we have tax people, we have construction people, we have builders, you know, we have access to a lot of specialists. Next. Okay, this is probably, I think, one of the most important charts. Whether you're buying or selling, there's going to be problems with the home. Every home has a problem. So when that inspection report comes that Tracy does, and she'll answer any questions in that regard, and you see 120 items if you're a buyer, especially these first-time millennial buyers, they freak out. They say, 120 items. And they might all be minor, or there might be just 2 or 3 that you really need to worry about. So that's where we come in. And we just did that today for your home in, what is it, Natick?
In Natick.
Yeah, Natick, yeah. So for instance, a garage might be on somebody else's land. I'm going to show you a slide where we picked that up. And she had a client, and if we hadn't picked that up, you know, they might have bought it and had a dispute. If not with that next door neighbor, the next person that bought that house. You know, will the appraisal come in at the right price? You may get a great price for your home, multiple bids, sell it $20,000, $50,000 over asking price. Then the bank comes in and says, we're not going to loan to that amount. It's overpriced. So that's one of the things that we help steer you from. You're going to find some problems. The things you need to worry about: mold, termites, hazardous waste, leaks, wood rot. I'm sure Tracy, asbestos, you know, buried tanks in the ground. But other than that, you know, and even those can be fixed. My friend Dominic bought a house in Lexington. I walked in the garage and it was riddled with holes of past termite damage. But it had all been mediated. He's an architect. He knows how to fix it. He didn't panic. He saw value in the house and he got a great price. And he knew how to remediate it and take care of it. So everything can be fixed for a price. But those are the big ticket items. But there's a lot of little things like a leaky pipe or something like that that you really don't have to worry about, but it adds to the numbers. And we also advise people on banks. We know that there are some banks that have their underwriting done on the West Coast. We always advise people to use a local bank because they're on different time zones, and sometimes the bigger the bank, the more your paperwork gets lost in the shuffle. Okay, that's good. Okay, here's the problem we found. She asked me to look up, Alina was representing a buyer on this house here in was this Natick too?
It's Natick.
This was a different Natick one than the one we're working on now. And can you tell me what's wrong with this picture?
The property line runs through the structure.
Yeah, that's the garage. And the seller was saying, oh, it's not a problem, it's not a problem, you know? And even if this neighbor says it's not a problem, what happens when the next guy buys it and says it is a problem? He's either got to tear down that garage or buy that land from him. Does a buyer want to be put in that position? Probably not.
What was the outcome, Rich?
What was the outcome? Her buyer withdrew. Even though they reassured them that, you know, till the cows came home, that it was okay. He said that the map and everything was wrong, but the buyer just said, you know what, I don't even want to go there. I don't even want to attempt to straighten it out. Yeah. All right, next. But we discovered that as part of our research. We talked about cosmetics. Okay, let's talk about painting, decluttering. There are inexpensive things you can do. The least expensive thing you can do is paint. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, for instance, this is the same car. Look at the difference when you buff it up and polish it up, or you leave it like this. Do you want to sell the home as is, or do you want to make some cosmetic detail improvements that aren't very big money to get the most money for your house? A lot of people say, I don't want to spend another penny on my house. Well, there's a trade-off for that, right? And sometimes just the littlest things like paint make all the difference in the world. Okay, this is the same room in the same house. Look at the difference. So what somebody like I or Alina do when we're working with a buyer is we try to give them the vision of what this could be. Or if we're dealing with a seller, we're trying to tell them, give them the vision of, if you take this and make it like this, it'll, if not get you more money, it'll definitely sell quicker. Wallpaper is, actually it's coming back in some respects, but it's pretty much gone out because people don't want to pay the extra labor. And wallpaper is very individualized and very personal. Next. Home sale contingency. Some people will come in and they'll say, I'll buy your house, I'll give you full price, but I'm making it conditional on selling my house. Well, that's like no offer at all. If I can sell my house, I'll buy your house. We would recommend somebody not take that offer. Now let's say we had a house on the market for 45 days and it wasn't moving, and the offer was good, and it was under purchase and sale agreement, which meant it hadn't closed yet, but somebody had put 5% down and it's in process of closing. That we probably would consider safer. But if we had another offer, like you were talking about, evaluating offers, and somebody was an all-cash buyer, or they didn't have that contingency, that contingency would go in one pile, and the other offers would go in another pile. We might never get to that pile. There's a thing called the 48 kick-out clause, our kick-out clause, which basically says we haven't had an offer in 45 days. This is the only offer that's come in. So what we'll do is we'll accept it conditional on this 48-hour kick-out clause, which means if another offer comes in between now and the time we go to purchase and sale agreement, okay, we'll give you 48 hours to come up with, to remove that contingency of a home sale condition, or we're going to kick you out. Okay, so here are some common questions that people have that we had in our thing. How much is my home worth? Location, location, location. I remember my sister Kathy said to me when I first bought my house in Lexington, and it was a little doll house, one-story cape, she said, Richard, why did you spend that much money for that tiny little doll house in Lexington when you could have bought one 3 or 4 times the size in X town? And I said, well, because they have an excellent school system, and I know the value of the house is going to be good, and it'll increase over time. She says, you don't even have children. And I says, yes, but someday I either will, or when I sell it, somebody else will and will want to live in Lexington. Okay? What is your home worth? Whatever a seller and a buyer agree. Every seller thinks their house is worth more than their neighbors. You know, but basically buyers, they comparison shop. They look at your house, the square footage, the condition, and they look at other houses. Now that it's getting more normal, they do that. But right now, there's still a shortage of inventory, so the sellers still have an edge, not as much as they did a year or two ago when they had all the cards, but it's whatever a buyer and a seller agree on. The condition of the home. I just looked at a home today, and even the seller recognizes it's his mother's home. She passed away. It's a tear down. But somebody like my friend who bought the house in Wakefield, who's a contractor, might make a better offer than a builder and say, I'll put the money I made on my last house and put it into this house and preserve it. So it depends on the condition of the home, the location of the home. That seller that I had, he had a $1.5 million home in Lexington. Didn't sell the first summer, sold the second summer, much lower than he wanted to, but it was right next to Route 2. It was a beautiful house, a gorgeous house. You were in that house, Lamia. Wasn't that a beautiful house? But when you went outside in the yard, you could hear 18-wheelers going by. How close are you to? Certain people put certain priorities on things like, can you walk to the center? My sister Patty, Newburyport, you know, she can walk right down and have breakfast at Newburyport every morning with her husband, and you know, there's a huge advantage to that, isn't there, Patty? Okay. And people will pay more for that, won't they? Mm-hmm. Than being further out, where they can't walk to the center.
I'm in the center too. You're walking distance.
Yeah.
It's very nice in public transportation.
Yeah, in Winchester, right.
Yeah.
They say that's worth $30,000 or $40,000 more, right there. Okay. Is it a seller's market or a buyer's market? In 2011, we came out of the Great Recession. We've been on a rise till July of last year. So we're now going into another cycle. It's still not a bad market. It's getting to be what we call a more normal market, where buyers now have some chance. It's still the seller's market to some degree, but we're not getting 8, 9, 10 multiple offers. You might get 1 or 2 or 3, and if that. Last couple of homes we sold that we thought we got great offers on, we only got 1 offer. Even a condo in Lexington for $257,000 or whatever it was, we only got 1 offer. We couldn't believe it. Where can you buy a condo in Lexington for that amount of money? But there were other issues. So one of the things we do is we perform a comprehensive market analysis, which is individualized to your home. Okay, let's go. Let's speed this up. Some other questions. How long will it take to sell? We'll talk about when we talk about those offers. If you overprice it, you're going to get no traffic and no offers. If you price it probably right at what we call the market range, you're going to get some offers, some traffic. If you do what we recommend, price it just below the median price, you're going to get heavy traffic and increase your odds of multiple offers. And the market will determine the price. Next. What are the 6 biggest mistakes in selling my home? Trying to sell it yourself. A lot of people say to me, you know, I can't believe you guys get 5% commission. You know what 5% is on $600,000? And I say, if you think hiring a professional is expensive, try hiring an amateur. Try hiring, I run into a lot of things where somebody hires their cousin, their aunt, don't hold this against me, or their nephew to sell their house, and they've only sold 1 house before. Biggest mistake you can make. Selling it wholesale to a builder. A builder's always going to buy it wholesale, and he usually has an exclusive on it. There's no competition. He'll come in and he'll say, I'll buy your house. You can leave everything in it, you know, and, but here's my price. It's not on the market. How do you know what you could get it? You're probably leaving money on the table. I always say, let the builder compete with the public market, and if he can still make a profit, and if his cash offer is better than the non-cash offer, sell it to him or her, right? Hiring an inexperienced agent. Sometimes I'll run into a situation where they say, well, the last agent said that they were in business for 20 years. So I look them up on my computer, and I find out that they sold one home last year. And I said, I says, the real question ought to be not how many years have you been in the business, but how many homes have you sold in the past year or the past 2 years? That's the question to ask. The other thing is not staging the home. An empty home does not sell as quickly or for as much money as a staged home, and I think, Lamia, you can probably testify to that. Not painting or putting in a new carpet. People say, I'm not putting a dime in it. You know, well, it's like that car that we saw, the buffed one versus the non-buffed one. Next. What are my options in the next move? Okay. You're either probably going to purchase a new home, or like my friend Nick that sold the expensive house along Route 2, he said, look, I'm not going to be pressured and rushed into buy just anything. So he rented for 6 months on a place that would give him a month-to-month lease in an apartment, and he shopped around and waited for the right opportunity to come along. Mature citizens can find independent or assisted living communities. You can add an in-law apartment, like I've been trying to convince my wife for, but she'll leave me if I do, so I can't do that. And the other option is you can always move in with your parents, right? Okay. Should I sell my home to a builder? I think we went over that. I think you got the idea on that. I'll let you, if you want to read that real quick. All right, so should I sell and then buy? Yeah, absolutely. An offer is more likely to be accepted over others. You can always rent for a short period, like I mentioned. And there are options for things called bridge loans. So for instance, let's say you are lucky enough to sell your home under a home sale contingency, which means you're selling your house and you want to buy another house. Certain banks will give you a bridge loan. They know your house is going to sell because it's valued right, it's in great location, there's a lot of turnover in your particular community. So they'll give you a bridge loan to carry you from one house to another. Okay. How can I maximize the value of my home? Price it slightly below market value. People always object to this when we recommend this. They say, you're trying to undersell my home. You just want your commission, you know? And I say, trust me, it'll sell quicker, you'll get more offers, which means you'll get more money. So stage your home in the best possible light. We talked about that. If you're going to spend money on anything in any one room, spend it on the kitchens and the bathrooms. Yes?
Appliances.
Appliances.
A new refrigerator, a new stove, a new dishwasher.
If it's a nice one, I mean, it doesn't have to be nice. If it's in decent condition, I wouldn't spend it.
What if it's 15 or 20 years old?
It's not the age, it's the condition. It's not the age, it's the condition. I never had anybody say, you know, even though new windows are an energy thing, they say, wow, he spent this money, he put in new windows. You know, you do it if the other windows are really bad and you got air leaks and all that other stuff that are obvious. But that doesn't really get you a lot of value. It depends, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Depends on the market you're in. If you're in a, you know.
Well, they say your dishwasher or your stove or whatever, they don't last longer than 12 to 15 years these days. Is that it?
Have you ever had anybody question you, any of your buyers question you, how old is the dishwasher? Now they have asked how old's the roof and the furnace. They want to know that.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I don't know, well, you don't get into the pricing and negotiation, Tracy, but what's your take on the age of the dishwasher and the...
I mean, I write it up in a report if I see a 30-year-old dishwasher, but a dishwasher could cost $250 if you wanted to replace with a new dishwasher. But I would write it up and just say, and I would put it in that future repair category. Like, you might want to think about upgrading the dishwasher to an Energy Star appliance. But
Okay.
I don't write it as like it's a deficiency.
It's old.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, right. A finished attic is better than a finished basement if you're gonna spend the money on it. Okay. What's the best time? Depends on market conditions. I got the most money for a house overvalued in February 2 years ago. That's the one I'll show you the 10 offers we got on, or the 8 offers, whatever we got. General rule of thumb though, if you had to, there's an exception to everything. Spring is better than the summer. Fall is better than the winter. So, But the other thing too is it's supply and demand. So if it's a tight market and buyers have been very frustrated because they keep losing out on multiple bids, but they start looking in the winter when other people aren't looking, they're more likely to find something. They'll have fewer choices, but they won't have the competition. So it depends on whether you're a buyer or a seller. Last, okay. We're going to skip all this. These are in these handout books that we have for you. The most important thing. First 2 weeks, this is why it's important to price your house right. The first 2 weeks your house is on the market is when it's going to get the most offers and the most activity. So if you overprice it, some people won't even look at your home. And you want to take a chance on losing somebody that might have made an offer. Okay, so that's very important. And then it goes down every 4 weeks after that, as far as it puts price pressure on the value of the house or the price of the house. Next. And in conclusion, Alina and I, that's a younger version of me, excellent service. We do a market analysis. We give you a winning marketing plan, every effort to sell your home. Now, Jill, can you go to my drive and find out, what did I label it as? Offers, multiple offers on Wyman Road. Wyman, look for Wyman. Type in Wyman, which was here in Lexington. Wyman Road. Go into this. Where's that? File Finder. Go into File Finder. Wyman. Look for an Excel spreadsheet. And actually, this is a good thing because you'll get to see what we do when we receive an offer. How do we present it to you? Wyman. W-Y-M, yeah, spreadsheet right there.
Desktop again.
Okay. Yeah, it needs a little cleaning up.
Oh my
Looks
God.
like mine.
I gotta keep like 4 things
You
on
must be brilliant. You must be brilliant.
Creative is the word. Okay, this was in November of 2018. We got 8 offers. Now, here's what we do. Can you blow that up, Jill, so they can see it? Move this up a little bit. See this thing down here? Will that blow it up? Because I know the print's small. All right, okay. So price isn't everything, okay? So here were the prices we got, okay? Very important. How long is the offer good till? Because you may have a high offer, but they may have a short time to get back to you, so you have to accept or reject that offer. Otherwise, you'd lose the opportunity to get it. They say, oh, that offer was good till 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and you passed that, so we're withdrawing our offer. Okay? And they can always withdraw their offer anytime before they accept it. All right? So, are they going to have an inspection, or are they going to waive it? This one says none. That's huge, because
Stupid.
it's stupid. It's stupid, but as in the case of my daughter, in order to be competitive, because it was a VA loan, they were putting no money down, so I had to have some advantage. We waived the inspection, and I've been on 150 inspections, so I kind of got a feel for the really critical items. And there was one thing, the deck, that probably actually I caught that and picked up. I think I asked you to take a look at that because it wasn't anchored to the house. But what I did was I did a post-purchase inspection, which meant that after she bought the house, I wanted her to know what kind of pig she bought. I wanted her to see what was wrong with the house after she bought it. Even though it's after the fact, at least she knows what she waived, what she needs to work on.
And I definitely recommend if you waive an inspection doing that, but there's still a risk. I mean, I did a lot of those post-inspections last year. On one, I found a buried oil tank. They owned it now. And
Yep.
I'll termite damage in the basement, I found an attic full of mold, that one was crying by the end of the inspection. So,
Right.
I mean, there is, if you know, there's.
Yeah, there's consequences for that.
So I would recommend trying to get permission to do a for information only inspection, like, I'm not gonna come back to you with anything, but I wanna know what I'm buying.
Yeah, let me tell you what I say when the buyer's agent says to me, we're doing a for informational only inspection, which means if we find something, we're still not gonna reject it, our offer's good. I tell my seller, that's an inspection. Don't fall for that. Don't buy that. That's an inspection. Sorry, Tracy. Okay, when is the purchase and sale degree? I probably didn't fill in some of these. How much of a mortgage? How much are they putting down? If somebody's only putting 5% down and somebody's putting 20% down, or somebody's putting 50% down, that tells you they're a stronger buyer. The chances of that deal falling through are a lot less. Do I have mortgage? Are they waiving their mortgage? This one. Oh, by the way, very important point. You see this one that says mine? And I think I had 2 of them.
The last two.
The last 2? Mine and mine.
Yeah.
I'm telling the seller that this is my unrepresented buyer, so I'm not hiding anything from them. I'm telling them that this, by the way, they didn't win. So my seller knew I was being upfront and honest with them. These offers came in, and they came to me because very sophisticated buyers, when they're in a hyper environment like this where they know there's lots of offers, figure their chances of winning are greater by going directly to the listing agent and saying, I don't have an agent, I want you to write it up. I know you can't represent me, but I want you to write it up. Because they figure they increase their odds of winning. So what are the things you got to consider? The price and the terms. Is there an inspection? Do they have a mortgage? If they do have a mortgage, how much are they putting down? How strong are they financially? So all those things are things we go through. Any questions on that before I turn it over to our experts?
I was just looking at the amount, so should the amount down plus the mortgage equal what's in column D? Should
Column D.
J plus
No.
H?
No. In other words, they're financing, you know, they're going to put $1,000 down as a binding offer, and this is how much they're financing. Out of the $870,000, they're financing $696,000. This one here, look at how close this one is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're only putting, then the amount down is 42,750. Then the one underneath it, both is 40, is that 42,50?
42,500.
I need new
42,000.
Yeah.
This one here doesn't look right. Kristen Brown. Oh, that's interesting. Kristen Brown. I might have had an extra 0 in here, I think. But basically, but what we want to do is we want to look at the whole picture. How strong are these people financially? They're putting this money down. And so I put this up before the seller, and I let them make the decision. Does that help?
Yeah, who won?
Who won? Well, actually,
Or how did it go
this
down?
person won, okay? They pulled out within 24 hours, because they didn't realize, they put their offer in, they saw the house at night, and they realized that they could see through the other side of the street, 128, behind the house. This is on Wyman Road in Lexington near 128. And so they dropped out, and then this person ended up winning next. So,
So it's
but that's the beauty of it,
It's
huh?
all about the price. Really, whoever bids more.
Generally speaking, that's true, but if somebody's putting 5% down and they're giving us more money, but they have a mortgage inspection, and they have a mortgage contingency and they have an inspection contingency, and somebody else is waiving both of those, if it's within, depending on the price point, if somebody's waiving a mortgage contingency and an inspection contingency, that to me as a buyer and as an agent in my recommending to a client, I would say that's you know, I wouldn't go for the absolute last tenth of a dollar. Because what'll happen is they'll do their inspection, Tracy will do their inspection, and she'll find out this, that, and the other thing wrong with it, and all of a sudden they're coming back to you and they say, we'll give them the price they want now, and we'll beat them up after the inspection and get 50,000 taken off.
You sound exactly what people say, by the way, all your comments. I've heard people say that throughout my life.
That's because we're just telling you what we hear. And we deal with it every day. Okay, let's talk to some, Ryan, let me begin with you. Do you have any questions about taxes or the tax consequences of selling your house?
If you've lived in the home at least 2 of the last 5 years. Now, if that is the case, many people are not even going to have to worry about paying taxes on the majority of their home. The only exceptions are if you've ever rented the property or you've ever used it as a home office. If either of those are the case, then you're going to have to worry about depreciation recapture. And that's something that you should talk to a tax professional about. The one other instance that people are exposed to now is we've been in a bull market for several years. If you anticipate your gain being greater than those amounts, it's important to keep in mind that when you're prepping your house for sale, that many of the expenses you incur can be used to offset the gain that you'll have on the property. The only other area to keep in mind has to do with rental properties, and I don't think that's relevant to anyone's situation here, but if it is, feel free to ask me any questions that you may
Some
have.
of us may have rentals.
If you do, there is an actual impact on how rentals are treated under the new tax reform. And they proposed new regulations that are binding until they issue final regulations that will enable people who spend enough time treating the property as a business to take the qualified business income deduction. So that is definitely something to consider if you want to purchase a home and you need to move before you can sell it, and you want to rent out the old home, and you spend enough time treating it as a business.
So I'll introduce myself a little bit, and then I'll go over what buyers are looking for when they are shopping for homes, and also how to pre-qualify the buyers and how to have a smooth transaction in selling your home. I came to US about 11 years ago. I went to Northeastern for a master's degree in economics. I worked as a microeconomics instructor, and also I worked as a Chinese lecturer in the companies, the international companies. They have some international business. And I worked as a college consultant. I helped the students to prepare for their private high school, private middle school, and the college. I joined this business about 4 years ago. Last year, we sold 24 homes, 18 millions together. And we have 3 sold this year and 1 under agreement. So together we have 10 years experience, right? But our volume is good. Okay, I have many designations like luxury homes and new construction specialist, and also both of us are expert of negotiation. How do buyers do the comparison shop when they are looking for their house? Because most of the time I work both for sellers and buyers, but I do most of my transactions working with buyers, so I know more of them. In the market, you will find like there are more overseas buyers. They are like including Asians, including but not limited to Asians. So I work a lot of international buyers, and I know what they're looking for. So when buyers, they want to buy a house, like if you want to buy a car, you do comparison shop, right? You compare. Like you can, most of the people will not buy the first house they see. They will see this one and the other one. They compare. Okay, this has a 4-bedroom. The other has a 3-bedroom. We need 4-bedroom, but can we convert this room as a bedroom? And if there's a finished basement, if there's not, we have to finish that. How much that cost, and also the location, like a busy street or near school. There is a commuter rail. This is a plus. Like conditions, do we need a new roof? Do we need to does it need a lot of work? Something like this. So they are not looking just at your house. They are looking at similar house together. Any questions? No? And how to pre-qualify the buyer. Now I work with buyers from overseas, and some of them are cash buyers. Like I would see about 50% of my buyers are cash buyers. So that is no problem. But we need to see the proof of fund. As I work as a buyer's agent, I'm surprised that when I'm submitting an offer, some listing agent, they do not require the proof of fund. I'm shocked, but I don't tell them. I think it's good for my buyer, because some of the money is in Hong Kong. This is normally is good, but when it's in Beijing and Shanghai, it's hard to get the money here. So I see many cases like they have PS signed, but they cannot get their money here in time. So that they all fall apart. They lose 5%, and the house have to be back on market again. This is really sad. I work for the buyer, and then Hong Kong is good. Shanghai and Beijing, it depends. Because I really see some buyers, they move their money from Beijing or Shanghai to here very quickly. And for the mortgage, there are some banks, they require the income statement. But there's some banks, they do not require the income statement from here. If you have properties, you have income from China, they can do that too. So I always call the mortgage company to say, oh, are you sure the buyer is qualified for that amount of money? I always do that. And if I'm the listing agent, I always require the proof of fund, and I will see which bank is good, which is not. And also, as me and Rich, we're in the business for a long time and we have experience, we know some banks, they just give you the pre-approval, but they will have problems. So writing a pre-approval is very easy, but we always call, are you sure? And we know which banks is on the do not list. we have that list. I have horrible experience. I have a buyer. She's a very successful woman. She's very successful. And I tell them, do not use that bank. She said, no problem. The VIP, everybody they want me something like. I cannot force her to use the person I recommend, but I tell her, I strongly recommend do not work with them. She said, oh, okay, no, there's no problem. I still want it. She's strong-willed. Okay, I said, okay, but we need to pay attention to the deadline. We have to meet the deadline. We have to remind them. And that bank failed to meet the deadline, and she's very frustrated. She borrowed money from her friends, and she got money from her financial account, so she lose some interest. But she's got very frustrated, and everybody, the two agents and the seller and the attorneys, everybody got blamed. That lady.
She should have listened.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I know that bank is not good.
Yeah.
But I won't disclose the name right now.
The bank says they're gonna give somebody a mortgage and then
Yeah.
they bail at the last minute?
No, they said, okay, we need more proof, and they request a proof of the lady is working for a company. They require the company to have the letter saying they will employ her for 10 years, more than 10 years. It's impossible.
Companies
It's
don't do that.
ridiculous. Correct. That exactly.
For employees at will in Massachusetts.
There
Exactly.
was something that I needed to mention really
Yeah.
briefly. This is something that if you work with a tax professional, they probably already went through. But mortgage interest as well as your property taxes are no longer going to be nearly as deductible as they used to be. Combined with your state income tax, even if you're married, you're only allowed to deduct $10,000 on your return for this year. So if many of you have very valuable homes, you might run into an unpleasant surprise that you're not getting nearly as much itemized deductions as you used to. I think that's one of the things that has made the real estate market so attractive to sellers right now. If you are living in your home, right now you're not getting nearly as much tax benefit as you used to. So many people who itemized are going to be adversely affected when they file taxes this year.
Is that a new policy?
It is. It's part of the tax initiative that was imposed at the end of last year, 13 months ago. It only came into effect for this filing season. So it's been around, but
They warned everybody about that.
Yeah.
I remember hearing it.
so I would say that if you have very valuable homes, plan on not being able to itemize nearly as much this year. I advised my clients to prepay their property taxes, so they could still take it in the year, but that was over a year ago. You can't do that anymore.
Lena, you have any?
Yeah, so for the commitment letter, we have a deadline for the commitment letter, which is normally like about 10 days to 14 days before closing. So at that time, if I'm a buyer's agent, I always say, okay, we are all set. I checked with the mortgage company, and I check with the buyer, say, oh, okay, we are all set. But if I work as a listing agent, I never remind the other person. I never ask them, are you all set for your mortgage? If they are not all set for their mortgage, we'll keep their deposit for 5%. So I will let them talk to me. And also, if I work as a listing agent, there is a Chinese, like there is an overseas buyer who's a cash buyer, and if their proof of fund is in, let's say in Beijing, so it all depends. If normally the deposit is 5%, if they put down like 50% or 30%, so even you are not sure, and the house may get back on market again, so you may also consider this. Because if they cannot get their money there before closing, you're gonna keep the 30%. I have a experience with a friend of mine who is selling her house in New Jersey. She has a buyer, a cash buyer, said, okay, well, put the deposit 30 or 40%, and then they cannot move their money here in time. And because my friend, she was just so nice. She said, okay, I'll give you 1 more month, 2 more months, and 3 more months doesn't sell. I said, you have the right, according to the law, you have the right to keep the deposit. She said, I don't want to do that. So she's really that nice, but I don't want that happen to my client. I work with cash buyers and mortgage buyers, both. We have the WeChat, the social media. It's for Asians, like we use that a lot. It's like Facebook, but I think it's more powerful than Facebook. It's like a community, and I always post everything there. So I would say most of my buyers come from that. And I work, I'm very active in community service. So I have some nonprofit organizations to help people about the education, to help them learn more about US. In that way, I have other clients too. I think I found out a very interesting thing. I think it was mentioned today. So the cultural conflict. It's not just you see obvious a conflict, but I think it's very invisible. Let's see. I think that can frustrate both the buyer and the seller. I have a transaction before, so the fence is broken down from a snowstorm because we are in Boston, It's before closing, and then the buyer see that, okay, can you fix that? So I request that through email, and then I get the email. It said it's pretty much fixed. So that means it did not fix, but they will take care of that, right? So my buyer see that. She said, okay, yeah. In her mind, she thinks it's already fixed, but she didn't tell me. I thought she know, but she didn't know. And before closing, oh, it's still there. I said it's paid. The contractor is paid. It's scheduled because it's too cold. We cannot put a new fence. And she's exploding. So I think it's really like the different cultures. People have different perspective, and from some culture, people like to negotiate. They will give a lowball offer, and they would love to negotiate like counter. But in some culture, they do not like that. They feel like insulted. So I have my college in China, and I have my graduate degree here. So I have both sides of the different things. So I can. I'm trying to make every transaction smooth. I'll tell them, okay, this is that culture that it might be different. Don't feel insulted, and we can work together. So I always tell people that I think it really helps, because I really see like a little minor conflict, but that can make both parties unhappy. I think this is really important.
So starting from A is pretty much cleaning the space, making sure things are decluttered, having a neutral palette if it's possible. That is the basic things. And sometimes you just have to go through your inventory and see if you can use your own items and then fix it that way. The place has to look practical, clean, somewhat appealing to the eye, and somewhat has a nice feng shui and spatial kind of the way it's designed. If it's not now, that if you could do it yourself, do it. If it's not, you could have a stager for like an hour or two, tells you what to do, and go over the space and advise you.
Do you recommend removing personal pictures and family pictures and keeping it less cluttered?
Well, the key is less cluttered. It could be personal or not, but it's you have to look at the scale, you have to look at the amount of stuff that you have, and then you have to edit. So pretty much when somebody walks in the house, they wanted to project the idea that it's airy and clean, and then they could actually visualize it. When it's cluttered and it's not up to date somewhat, then people cannot, they see like a noise, and they cannot see themselves living in that space. So that's the way you have that to start with.
Melania, can I just interject?
Yeah.
I think I know where she's going with that. We will encourage people to remove religious objects. If you had young children and you were concerned about their safety, yeah, you'd probably children. But if your family's mature and stuff, as long as it's not cluttered, but go ahead.
It's true. I'll keep things as new, because you don't know who's stepping in your place, and you don't know which belief they came in. It's just nice to have that if it's possible. And then there are other steps. The next step, your house is in the market for a while and you're not able to sell it, then you have to go further. And then you do other things. You change the furniture or do other major changes. It all depends on your budget, and it all depends which market you're in. If you're in a hot market, the minimal helps. If you are in somewhat mediocre market, then you have to work a little bit harder to make that house appeal. And just you have to look at where you are, and the agent will be able to help you from the beginning.
Mommy, what are the colors now that are popular?
Well, now there's like all these global colors and all this tribal kind of trend. But when it comes to sell any place, you have to keep it neutral, because some people might like this color and this wallpaper and this light, but then keep it as neutral as possible. So that's the thing.
We see a lot of gray and white in the new construction.
Well, yes, the gray and white. Gray is somewhat neutral. Gray, brown. When I say neutral, it runs from white all the way to gray, brown, those kind of palettes. But then when I say neutral, meaning red and purple and pink, and that's very specific. So yeah, gray, it's considered somewhat neutral.
White kitchen cabinets are very much in vogue, but if somebody had a good set of cherry cabinets or even oak cabinets, even though it may look like 80-ish, if they're good cabinets, you know, that's not where to put the money, I would say, unless they're really worn and beat up.
Yes, I mean, the thing is that you have to project it as it's still somewhat up to date and somewhat of a good quality if it's possible. If it's not, then you have to reconsider either painting or changing some things. So it depends on your budget. But you work with different market. That's the thing. You don't know who's what. Because now you see the retro, and you see that's in different areas, and you see the Kelly green. It's popping, and you see, but it doesn't mean everyone likes that.
Some people like it.
Some people like it, but then when you're trying to appeal to general market, then you want to stay as neutral as possible.
We advise people not to change them because the next person may have a completely different color scheme or idea in mind. But we've seen, like we have a condo in Winchester right now. He doesn't have to change the cabinets, but for $2,000, if he just took the Formica countertop off and just put granite there, it would just make the place pop.
So I just want to tell you exactly what I say when I start an inspection. I tell my buyers, you know, first off, all homes have stuff. There's no perfect house. This will not be a perfect house. I've done 2,000 inspections. I've never had a perfect inspection. New construction has issues too. I tell them to prepare themselves. All we're going to do is focus on the negative, and that there's going to be, I'm thorough. I'm going to point out every little thing. Not everything is a big deal. And I use summaries in my report to prioritize. This is something I consider major. It's going to cost a lot of money. This is a safety issue. I also tell them I'm not here to enforce code. I'm not going to talk about safety code. My standards often exceed code. I'm going to tell you recommendations that could help you and your family be safer living here. It's up to you whether you choose to do them or not. Because people love to say to me, well, how did this pass code? I don't know. I don't know if the inspector even got out of the car. I don't know what the code was that day. It doesn't matter. I'm just suggesting you might want to put a handrail here. Up to you. I tell people that the seller does not need to do anything. I tell them I'm not here to get money off your deal. I'm here to share information, and what happens with that information is between all the rest of you. I tell people that the only thing the seller is required to do is bring the house up to code with smokes and carbons. Anything else?
Smoke some what?
Smoke and carbon detectors. Every transaction of every property in the state of Massachusetts, the seller is required to bring the house up to code, bring in the fire department, get it inspected, and bring a certificate to the closing. So I don't even look at that.
And they have to be sealed batteries now. You can't use replaceable
And that's
batteries.
why we don't learn it, because it changes all the time, and I'm in 50 different towns, and it's different in every town, so I don't have to do that. So that's kind of how I approach it. I spend a lot of time telling people how their systems work, if they're interested. I tell them maintenance things, like this is how often you should change your filters. This is when you should exercise your breakers in your panel. So I feel like my job is to educate as well. You know, this is like, we're gonna spend 2 or 3 hours, and we're gonna teach you everything, hopefully, that you need to know. For sellers, so I have had sellers, I recently did an inspection for a seller. Sometimes sellers either wanna know what might come up on their home inspection, so that they can either decide to get ahead of it and fix it, or to price it accordingly. I just did an inspection for a woman who is literally building a house next door to her house. So she's going to be living next door to these people. So she wants to just say, here's everything. And so that she's going to give that to her real estate agent, and they're going to sell it as is, but they're going to be able to disclose, like, we did an inspection, this is what came up. We know, I'm not hiding anything. I'm curious what you think the advantage is to a seller to accept an offer without a home inspection.
What the advantage is of a seller to accept an offer.
Like, why is that weighed more, oh, these people waived their home inspection? What's the fear of having a home inspection?
The
downside.
the thing is, one is they can use it as an opportunity to renegotiate the price. And that's probably the biggest thing, is that some people will use that, to say, look, we gotta get this home, this is a strategy to get the home, and then we'll work on the issues after the inspection and reduce the price. Not everybody does that, but I'm just saying some people do.
No, I know. I mean, last year was very challenging because a lot of people were waiving their home inspections.
Right.
And obviously, it affects my livelihood, but like personally, because I know the kind of job I do and I know the kind of job a lot of inspectors do, I just think it's so dangerous. I mean,
It is
we are
dangerous.
often finding serious safety issues that nobody was trying to hide it, they just didn't know. I did an inspection on a house where somebody had decided they wanted a fireplace, and they put a fireplace on the first floor and just tapped into the chimney with the flue that went like that into the chimney that was venting the boiler. And that house was being rented. There were tenants in there. I actually did something I've never done before. I called the fire department. And I said, there are tenants living here, there are children living here. If anything obstructed that chimney, the boiler's gonna vent right into the house. So there's stuff, they didn't know. I'm sure that the guy who was renting it didn't know. But there's stuff like that that people just don't know. So I just think it's like an advantage for everybody to know. So whether you do it before you're buying or you do it after you bought.
That was a recent phenomenon, and normally a good buyer agent would never, ever, ever recommend that their clients waive an inspection. However, what was happening in the market in 2012, 13, 14, 15
Even
is
last year.
that buyers were losing out deal after deal, and they're saying, what is it gonna take for us to win?
I know.
You know, because we keep losing out to people, and so what some people were doing is to say, look, we'll just waive the inspection, and then we'll get the inspection after the fact. And there were some people where that wasn't an issue, and then there were some people that realized, whoa, we just, you know, we got $100,000 of expenses here we gotta fix on, you know, on a
No,
chimney or
It
something.
was a terrible situation for
Yeah.
buyers. I mean, for sellers, it was great. But I mean, up until very recently, I've had clients where I've done 3 or 4 inspections for them, and they call me the next time like, we didn't win that one either. And it's hard to spend $600 on something that you're not gonna get. But yeah, so then I started a plan to market these I called them post-closing inspections. And
Right.
I was doing inspections last year for people after they already bought the house, after they closed on it.
Is that a tax deduction for the buyer if you do an inspection?
So, closing costs related to the property can, in many cases, it includes inspections. It's going to be, so if you have to, I can't say like 100% of all expenses will be deductible in every case, but generally yes.
But if you do an inspection and you don't end up getting the sale, then you can't write it off.
Correct.
So you can't deduct the 4 inspections you did before you got this
Oh.
property.
Seems like there should be, because it's being smart.
I mean, unfortunately, it's like a gamble.
It's like looking for
Yeah.
a job.
I would say the biggest thing, if you want to put cash into a property and you're, want to know that it's going to go towards the price, and your excess of the section 121 are improvements. Improvements to the property are things that leave it in a better condition than it was before. Those will always be attributable to your basis for however long you hold the property. So one of the things that you should bring to your tax professional, if you don't already have one, feel free to talk to me, but is all of the improvements you've made to the property since you've received it.
Like 40 years worth?
If you've had it for 40 years, yeah, absolutely.
Big shoebox.
Yeah, if you put an addition on, or, yeah, all those things.
Definitely. For many people, it saves them a fortune, in taxes at least.
Wow.
Because
But
that
you
comes
can't
off of the capital
calculate-
gains, yeah.
You can't calculate your own time, like if you spent time
No.
raking leaves and
Your time, it does not go towards the basis.
It's what you actually paid out.
if you hired somebody
Right.
to do that.
Now, if it's considered a repair, it's not gonna go towards the basis. But if it improves the quality of your property, then it will.
All right, I think that's it. I just want to finish off with Tracy. One of the nicest things that Tracy does that I've never heard another inspector do is say, listen, I'm just not your inspector for today. If you ever have a problem, here's my card, here's my number. Feel free to call me if there's something you forgot about or whatever, and that's a
I
very, very
actually
nice
had
thing.
probably 3 times this week, had people email me from last year that have a question about something. Guy called me he called me, I think, and it was like 9 o'clock. I answered the phone, and the alarm was going off on his sump pump battery. And, you know, he was first-time home buyer, he was freaking out, should they leave, what should, and I mean, I calmed him down enough, you know, he described it to me, and I told him, like, that thing's just telling you the battery needs service. Is there water in the pit? No, and it's not raining out, so I think you're probably safe. Unplug it and call the waterproofing company in the morning, and that's what they did. And you know, they told them you just need to pour some distilled water in the battery, and it'll turn the alarm off. But I tell people I'm here as long as you live here. You can call me and ask questions.
Can we send him a bill?
So, does anybody have any questions before we wrap up?
Well, I was wondering, you're saying about the money down, that you could keep it if the sale went through. Could you, like, what's the minimum, when you say that, when they put in an offer? So what do they put down? If it's $1 million, let's say if it's $1 million.
It's 5% generally speaking. In other words, when they put that initial $1,000 down or $500 down, depending on the price point, before the inspection, they get their money back. But once the inspection's over, assuming there is an inspection, or once they go to purchase and sale agreement, which is like 10 days later, and they put the big money down, what we call 5%,
Yeah.
if for any reason the buyer gets cold feet and backs out of the deal, the seller gets to keep that 5% deposit because they took the house off the market. It's now
Oh,
hurt the
okay,
saleability of the house.
And the mortgage is already ready to go, the bank is, but what if like the bank screwed up? Who would be liable for that? I would think the bank would be, so if the seller is ready to move forward, they shouldn't be penalized if the bank,
The buyer get the 5%.
the buyer would get it back.
Yeah.
If the bank screwed up.
If the bank screwed
Okay,
up,
okay,
yeah.
yeah, I was,
But it
'cause I was
depends.
somehow thinking that,
Yeah,
But
that's the mortgage contingency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the mortgage contingency, like, if there is a letter said if it depends on the sales of their home or other properties,
right,
it's still the buyer should be responsible for that. And for Leading Edge, our company, we have a special consumer protection plan that if we work as a listing agent, we always have the buyer and the buyer's agent sign, like you are not hiding any information about whether you will get your mortgage, depends on whether you sell your home, stocks, any other properties. If you are lying, the seller gonna keep the 5%. Right.
Yeah, that's something
Yeah.
unique. Our company has this consumer protection clause that says, you know, if you falsify the fact that you are really needing to sell another home to be able to buy this, if that comes up and you said you didn't initially, then the seller gets to keep your deposit.
Because some of the buyers, not a lot, I mean, some, they are lying, so we
Yeah.
have to protect our clients.